1 week ago, Rowan and I thought we had found our dream home in Bravaro, a gated community that promised safety, luxury, and a vibrant social life. It seemed like the perfect place to start anew, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. The lush landscaping, pristine homes, and friendly neighbors were everything we could have hoped for. However, the idyllic facade quickly crumbled when we stumbled upon an unsettling rule in the community guidelines. We discovered this rule in a welcome letter from Irene, the head of the Bravaro Homeowners Association. It was a standard welcome letter, full of cheerful greetings and information about community events. But one paragraph stood out, striking us with a strange sense of foreboding. There must be no laughing after dark. At first we laughed it off as a quirky rule or a joke, a harmless piece of local color. Who would seriously enforce such a strange restriction? But as the sun began to set on our first evening, an eerie silence descended over the neighborhood. It felt as if the entire community was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. That's when the reality of the rule began to sink in. Curious and slightly unnerved, I decided to call Irene to get some clarity. Her cheerful tone did little to ease my concerns. She explained that the rule wasn't about noise control, but something deeper, something more ominous. She advised us to refrain from laughing once the day's light started to fade, warning us that the rule was not enforced by the Hue, but by something or someone else. Her words sent chills down my spine, especially when she hinted at mysterious consequences for those who dared to laugh after dark. She spoke of sacrifices made by the residents for the peace and safety of the community, leaving me with more questions than answers. What kind of sacrifices? And why laughter, of all things? That night, as Rowan and I prepared for bed, the atmosphere in the house grew heavy, oppressive. Every creak of the floorboards and whisper of the wind outside seemed amplified. The air was thick with tension, and we couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The next day, we tried to go about our lives as usual, but the unease lingered. We decided to stay quiet and follow the rule, at least for the time being. But our resolve was tested when Rowan's colleague Joanne came over for a visit. Unaware of the community's strange prohibition, Joanne made a light-hearted joke that made us all laugh. The laughter, though brief and innocent, felt like a transgression. Almost immediately, a sense of dread filled the room. It was as if the very walls of the house were closing in on us. Joanne suddenly began to choke, and to our horror, she coughed up a crumpled piece of paper with a simple yet chilling message: expulsion notice. Please exit through the basement. Panic set in as we realized the true nature of Bravaro's rule. The community wasn't just a place with peculiar regulations. It was a trap. The doors and windows no longer led outside but into other rooms of the house, creating an endless loop. We were trapped in a labyrinth with no escape, save for one ominous instruction: exit through the basement. Terrified and unsure of what awaited us, we hesitated. What could be waiting in the basement? Was it an escape route or something far more sinister? Our minds raced with possibilities, each more horrifying than the last. As we stood there, contemplating our next move, the house itself seemed to grow darker, as if consumed by a malevolent force. We could hear faint, ghostly laughter echoing through the halls, a reminder of the rule we had broken. It was then that we understood the rule wasn't just about maintaining peace and quiet. It was about something much darker, something that fed on the joy and laughter of the living. Desperate and with no other options, we decided to face whatever was in the basement. Holding hands, we made our way down the creaky stairs, each step taking us deeper into darkness. The air grew colder, and the smell of damp and decay filled our nostrils. As we reached the bottom, a single flickering light bulb illuminated the room, revealing an old rusty door we knew lay the truth about Bravaro and the fate of those who dared to laugh after dark. But as we reached out to open it, the door suddenly swung open on its own, revealing nothing but a pitch-black void. A chilling wind rushed out, carrying with it whispers of laughter, distorted, eerie, and full of malice. We realized then that Bravaro wasn't just a community. It was a trap, a place that lured in the unsuspecting and fed on their happiness. The rule wasn't about keeping peace. It was about silencing joy, feeding whatever darkness lurked in the shadows. With no other choice, we stepped into the void, hoping to escape the nightmare that Bravaro had become. As the darkness enveloped us, I could hear Joanne's terrified sobs and Rowan's whispered prayers, but just before we were swallowed whole, I felt a strange sensation, a pulling as if something was dragging us back. The next thing we knew, we were standing in front of our house, the morning sun shining brightly. There were no signs of the previous night's horror, No indication that anything strange had happened, but the fear lingered, as did the knowledge that we could never laugh again. At least not after dark. We left Bravero that very day, abandoning our dream home and all our belongings. We couldn't risk staying another night in that cursed place. The house, the community, the rule, they all felt like a bad dream, but the fear was real, and so was the terror that had gripped us. As we drove away, I glanced back at the sign that marked the entrance to Bravero. The sun glinted off the metal letters, making them hard to read, but I knew what it said. It was a warning, a reminder to anyone who dared to enter. No laughing after dark. And as we left, I couldn't help but wonder how many others had been caught in Bravero's trap, how many had laughed, only to disappear into the darkness. I shuddered at the thought and vowed never to find out. For us, the nightmare was over. But for those still living in Bravero, the darkness remained, waiting for the next laugh to break the silence. My mom is facing eviction, not because of any fault of her own, but for allegedly violating a no-dog policy, despite the fact that we don't even own a dog. This nightmare began when a kind-hearted woman, Mrs. Armstrong, moved into the apartment across the hall. We call her Amanda, as she prefers that over her formal name. A retired nurse in her 70s, Amanda welcomed us with a home-cooked meal of chili con carne on the day we met. Mom remarked on how rare it was to find such genuine neighborliness these days. As I eagerly devoured the chili, Amanda spoke about her upcoming trip to Amsterdam. Mom teased her about visiting the sex museum for inspiration, but Amanda responded with a cryptic laugh about the torture museum, which left me puzzled. So after dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom, but ended up opening the wrong door, stumbling upon Benji, a blonde Pomapoo, a breed of dog. Benji began barking and growling at me until Mom, who used to train special service dogs, calmed him down with ease. It seemed that animals adored her. Even lions would probably purr for a belly rub if she walked into their den. While I enjoyed a slice of chocolate cake, I tried to make polite conversation with Amanda about a framed picture on the wall. Her eyes misted over as she revealed it was a photo of her daughter, who had died long ago. The girl was strikingly beautiful, with red hair contrasting Amanda's own white strands. This revelation left a somber mood. Mom became emotional, sharing my struggles with dizziness and migraines. Because of these brainstorm clouds, I hadn't been able to move out after school, but I helped with the bills through a part-time job at a nearby hotel run by the kind Mr. McCann. He was lenient when I needed time off due to my health, and Mom had always been a rock, nursing me back to health. Amanda was silent for a moment, but I offered comfort by saying that Benji's affection proved her daughter was lucky to have had her as a mother. Amanda appreciated the sentiment and rewarded me with an extra piece of cake. Before we left, Amanda made one peculiar request. Please don't mention Benji to anyone. We agreed, understanding that our landlord, Mr. White, was not fond of animals. Mom assured Amanda that her secret was safe. Mr. White had always been a friendly landlord, occasionally residing below us. He worked as a doctor but owned a larger house in the country, staying here when too tired to drive home. Mom appreciated this arrangement, as his presence would have worsened my migraines. Mr. White also allowed us to pay rent late if needed. However, when Mr. White passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack in January, his son, also Mr. White, took over the property. Mom hoped nothing would change, but things quickly took a turn for the worse. He knew Mr. White planned to live downstairs full-time, which meant Amanda had to keep Benji hidden and only take him for walks when she was sure the coast was clear. One day, as Mom and I returned from shopping, the new Mr. White approached us, inquiring about my problem. Mom, clearly agitated, ushered me upstairs. She explained that Mr. White's questions weren't friendly and that my illness had kept me from socializing much, affecting my communication skills. Mr. White began lurking near the stairs, and soon he started knocking on our door with bizarre questions about the apartment's water pressure and internet connectivity. One afternoon, I overheard a heated argument between Mom and Mr. His insults and condescending remarks about my condition were unbearable. When Mom slammed the door, I could see her distress and promised to protect her, even if it meant taking drastic measures. Mom's reassurances that she was okay were comforting, but something felt terribly wrong. A few nights later, I was jolted awake by loud pounding at the door. My brain fog made it hard to piece together events, but Mr. White's repeated shouts of dog were unmistakable. Mom avoided discussing the confrontation, but later, Amanda arrived with wine, her face reflecting fear. She revealed Mr. White was furious about hearing a dog's toenails on the floor, which he mistakenly believed was our apartment. Amanda's distress was palpable. She confided that Benji was her only companion, and Mom comforted her. Mr. White's increasingly erratic behavior, exacerbated by what Mom suspected was alcohol, led to more tension. One night, I awoke to the sounds of Mom and Mr. White arguing. She was desperate for him to leave, but he violently forced his way into our apartment. In a terrifying struggle, Mr. White assaulted Mom while I, too weak to intervene effectively, watched in horror. Out of nowhere, a massive gray wolf appeared, attacking Mr. White with a ferocity I had never witnessed. The wolf's powerful jaws clamped down on Mr. White's scalp, while Mom and Amanda looked on. Eventually, Amanda led the wolf away, and they cleaned up the aftermath, concealing any trace of the violence. Despite being terrified and confused, I realized the wolf had only attacked Mr. White, suggesting it was a guardian of sorts, protecting us from harm. Amanda assured Mom that no police involvement was needed. I managed to keep this horrific event a secret, but the fear of being evicted remained. Now, with Mr. White dead and our future uncertain, I'm left feeling a mix of fear, confusion, and anger. I'm not sure why Mom kept the wolf's intervention a secret, but I trust that it was for our safety. The lingering questions and the unsettling feeling of what's to come haunt me, but my love for Mom keeps me grounded through this terrifying ordeal. If you enjoyed this stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling tales. Your support means a lot. Stay safe and keep the lights on.